really bright college graduates who come in, they can't write an inter-office memo. So to the extent that you can write, you can communicate, you'll be miles ahead of the competition when you get out. Stretch yourself, get out of your comfort zone. That's something I didn't learn for a long time because it's easy to kind of sit there and kind of maintain. But if you're able to do things you're not comfortable with, if you're not a good speaker and you have the ability to get up and speak and talk in front of people, if you can do that and get yourself to do that, I think you'll be ahead of the game. Two other things, and these are kind of old school quotes that I've always thought were very apropos. One is, you're never as good as you think you are, but you're never as bad either. And I learned that when I was in TV, when I do a story and I think it was the best story I've ever done, and I get back to the station and people are, what were you talking about? And I get calls from people and talking about what a terrible story it was. But at the same time, I remember doing stories that I thought, God, that wasn't very good. And I get people saying it was a great story. So the bottom line is to just maintain. Never get too high, never get too low, because again, you're never as good as you think you are or as bad. And the other one, the final thing, I think this is very important too, we talked a little bit about it at the dinner this evening, is to be nice to people who can do absolutely nothing for you. And I it's an old saying, but I mean I think it's something that people forget these days sometimes, especially in this go-go world, and people are successful and doing great things, and things are good. They kind of tend to forget some of the basics. There was a guy, some of you may remember a guy named Steve Hilbert, who built a company called Conseco, and now it's C&O Financial Group. Steve, and he was always very nice to me, and a good guy. He did great. He went to Indiana State, sold encyclopedia. He was a master salesman. And he built this company, this life insurance company, Conseco, and it grew very fast, very rapidly. And ultimately, things went south. He was pretty flamboyant, had a big mansion. It's now the Lucas Oil Mansion. It used to be the Conseco Mansion, the Hilbert Mansion, I should say. But I will always remember when Steve came into our show for the first time, and this was when he was big, high-flying Wall Street guy. And he comes in, and people would say, "Oh yeah, he's going to come in with rolling with some, with his posse and all this." No, he came in. He was by himself. But the thing I'll always remember is when he came in, the first people he went and said hi to were the camera people and the people on the floor. Introduced himself to every one of those people before he came up and introduced himself to me. And that always really impressed me. And I will tell you, when he left, those people on the floor thought he was the greatest person in the world, because he took time to say hello and just take a minute. So I guess that's the final thing I'd leave you with. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, thoughts or comments on anything. No holds barred.
While you're thinking of some questions, especially my students who I expect to think of questions, Gary, I'd like you to answer this one. How is it in the world that you succeeded at the same time media outlets like the Star are laying people off, Gannett's losing money hand over fist, the free internet is replacing a lot of the old-time paid media, yet you continue to succeed? How do these massive organizations miss it, and what did you see that they didn't?
Well, and I'll put it this way, and I'll never, because I think competition is good, and certainly the Star and the Business Journal would be competitors. We do different things, but we're competitors in the sense that we all go after the same advertising dollar. So we're competitive, and I think that competition is healthy. And this is me, I don't throw stones or cast aspersions or whatever, but I do remember when we started out, a little inside Indiana business, a couple people, and some of the other guys kind of dismissed this, and I was up for, hey, we can do a partnership, and just, they didn't really want to do that kind of thing. And this whole internet thing that was coming with video and that kind of thing, they talked about it, but we really focused on, man, we think we ought to get on this thing. So I think, and as I told folks in our company, I say, look, people can do whatever they want to do. We've got to continue to do our thing. Stick to the business model, and you make changes as you see, you know, you need to make changes, but stick to that business model, be confident in what you're doing, and if you keep the head down and keep plowing ahead, you know, I think some of the bigger companies got a little, frankly, a little arrogant, to be very honest, got arrogant. And I remember one organization, I think it was 2006 or 7, something like that. They said, hey, we're going to dominate the business market here. Columnists, they got e-newsletters, all that kind of stuff. Some of the leadership over there kind of dismissed us in several instances. Well, today it's much different. And it's, you know, it's just one of those things. I think it's keeping your eye on the ball and moving ahead. I think that's benefited us. So, questions?
Gary, enjoyed your presentation very much.
Thank you.
And your advice, even though you didn't want to give any. Quick question. Since you have such a pulse on Indiana business, and since this state makes so much money off of, I would call the umbrella term, the life sciences industry, what's your opinion of the impact of the new legislation when it takes effect in 2014 on the life sciences industry, since they do benefit the economy of the state of Indiana so much?
And you're talking about the healthcare reform?
Yes, the Affordable Health Care
Yeah,
Act.
right. I think a couple things. I think one, the point about the life sciences in Indiana, and for those of you who are interested in that, I would tell you that is, there's great opportunity. And again, Indiana, we've had Lilly for a long time. We've had, you know, Purdue and IU and big institutions and the UIndies and everything for a long time. But for the last 12 years, I'll say, more than a decade, there's been a focus with BioCrossroads and some other organizations to promote innovation and promote these entities. So the opportunity is there. The impact of the legislation, this healthcare reform, you call it Obamacare, could be actually, in some instances, pretty negative for the state in terms of orthopedics and orthopedic companies, medical device companies. In that law, there's a tax that's basically, you know, a tax on gross sales, and that is part of the legislation that goes into effect in 2014. And for example, I mean, Warsaw, Indiana, anybody from northern Indiana, that area, Kosciuszko County, orthopedic capital of the world. Zimmer Biomed, DePuy, a lot of other companies up there. Cook down in Bloomington is another big medical device company. Cook estimates that the law will cost him $25 million a year. Just that one thing would be $25 million a year. So it has the potential, and pharmaceutical companies stand to be impacted as well, has the potential to be pretty negative for the state. I know there are efforts to get that part of it repealed, but it could be negative. But again, I mean, there are lots of things going on. John Lechleiter at Lilly talked about, a week ago he came out with this thing talking about innovation, this stance, and he's big on innovation. And he called on the state to create a statewide research institute to really compete with San Diego and Boston and Research Triangle in North Carolina and stuff, to make this really big research institute to attract and retain top talent. And people thought, well, it's kind of a pipe dream, but actually that's been kind of behind the scenes in discussion for about the last 4 or 5 months. Mike Pence, who's the governor-elect, supports it. It's my understanding they're going to go to the legislature with that idea this year and try to get that thing moving. So the life sciences, every state in the country is trying to get that kind of investment. There was a report that came out earlier this year, the Bio report, put Indiana as the top life sciences state in the country this year in terms of investment jobs. So,
Other questions?
Good evening. What do you feel is your probably biggest obstacle that you're trying to expand outside of Indiana and try to get this idea outside? What do you feel is your biggest obstacle?
yep, it's pretty simple. And we still think there's opportunity. If we were doing a health show, for example, all we have to do is do a health show, you know, one show, and then we distribute it to whatever, 20, 30, 40, 100 stations. But because our model is built around local, we've got to have local content. So if we're doing a show in, if we're doing something in Columbus, Ohio, or Nashville, Tennessee, we've got to have somebody on the ground there who's similar to me in terms of, you know, has skin in the game, you know, so there's a cost there for human, for personnel, at least a person in that market. So it's about, you know, ultimately you want to make money. That's what you're in business for. So that's the biggest thing, is finding that that sweet spot when it comes to that. We're thinking through a couple of things, and now that the economy seems to be slowly getting a little better, we're going to revisit it. But you know, we thought about making it more regional. We did Tucson just simply because the guy I hired first moved out there. That probably wasn't the best place to do it necessarily. But there are markets closer here in the Midwest, you know, Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville, St. Louis, that would be easier targets. So that's the biggest one, because now, for example, we've got some economies of scale. So we've got the newsletter, for example, that we push out twice a day. Theoretically, we could have content coming because of technology from those other markets could come into our office with the content. We could put it together and send it out, you know, to the exact target kind of thing. So there are a lot of things we have that point to it happening, but it's getting over that last hurdle to make it work financially.
I'll take the last question. Well, I'll let her. You can have the last question. I was going to assert executive privilege.
I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and they were talking about the Health Care Act and saying that businesses could potentially get a $2,000 fine if they don't do health care to every single person. Do you think that would impact, it's a 40-hour work week, do you think that instead of having one full-time job, businesses would break it down to 2 part-time, and would that negatively impact?
Yeah, another question on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. I think we'll see, you know, time will tell on that, but we're beginning to see companies kind of toe the water in their Garden Restaurant Group, I think is one that, well, they got Olive Garden and a bunch of restaurants, you know, but it's a big restaurant group. They announced that they were going to be doing that from a part-time standpoint, and some other companies are taking steps now that people have anticipated they'll do, but ultimately we'll see how that plays out. It could have an impact here for sure.
Kyle, if you could step forward, please.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.